What if I told you the next global revolution in innovation, talent, and influence won't come from Silicon Valley, but from a nation often overlooked by the West? The Philippines, long viewed as a labor-exporting country, is quietly becoming one of the most critical engines powering the global economy. From hospitals in New York to call centers handling billions in business to creative teams behind some of your favorite content, Filipinos are everywhere. And if there's one person who understands the importance of grit, adaptability, and relentless work ethic, it's Elon Musk. No, he didn't literally issue a warning. But if you look closely at his hiring preferences, his public comments on productivity, and the way he builds companies, they align uncannily well with the Filipino spirit. Think about it. Musk once said, "Nobody ever changed the world in 40 hours a week." Now ask yourself, who fits that mold better than the average overseas Filipino worker juggling 2 jobs just to send money back home? Today, we unpack why the West is underestimating one of the most hard-working and loyal workforces on Earth. And why, if they don't wake up soon, it may be too late. The Filipino work ethic, an untapped superpower. Filipino workers are known around the globe for one trait that never goes out of style: unmatched dedication. From nurses in New York to seafarers navigating international waters, from customer service representatives handling global companies' clients to nannies and caregivers raising the children of 4 nations. Filipinos are the silent engines powering parts of the world most people take for granted. This global presence isn't random. It's rooted in a cultural and historical framework that values hard work, humility, and deep loyalty to family. Many overseas Filipino workers, known as OFWs, are thousands of miles away from their loved ones, sending most of their earnings back home. They sacrifice personal comfort for collective well-being. That kind of discipline isn't taught in corporate seminars. It's lived daily. And beyond the emotional grit, Filipinos come equipped with practical advantages. High English proficiency makes communication seamless with Western employers. Their emotional intelligence allows them to manage conflict, read tone, and adjust to international work cultures. And their cultural flexibility means they're able to work with Australians in the morning, Americans in the evening, and Canadians overnight, all with ease. Now compare this with what the Western labor force is currently going through: quiet quitting, burnout, entitlement debates, and endless TikTok rants about soft life versus hustle culture. There's a growing rejection of long hours, tough bosses, and high-pressure environments. Filipinos, on the other hand, aren't just surviving those environments, they're excelling in them. Imagine this. If SpaceX were run by Filipino engineers, deadlines might actually be met faster. The stereotype of the slow-moving bureaucracy wouldn't stand a chance against the average Filipinos' "let's get it done" attitude, often accompanied by a smile. The truth is, the Filipino work ethic is a sleeping giant. And while the West debates 4-day work weeks and remote burnout, Filipinos are clocking in, showing up, and quietly keeping the global machine running. Elon Musk's obsession with talent and work ethic. Elon Musk has never been shy about his views on work. One of his most quoted lines is simple but brutal: "Nobody ever changed the world in 40 hours a week." Musk isn't just a billionaire. He's an architect of future industries. And to build that kind of empire, he surrounds himself with people who don't just work hard, they live their work. Musk has openly admitted to working 80 to 100 hours a week during Tesla's crunch periods. He slept on factory floors. He doesn't believe in shortcuts. And what does he value in people? Intensity, resourcefulness, resilience under pressure. The kind of person who doesn't clock out when the job gets tough, but leans in harder. Now, think back to what we just said about Filipinos. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Musk may not be holding press conferences about the Filipino workforce, but many of his preferences line up directly with the Filipino profile. He wants people who are adaptable, check. Who can problem solve under pressure, check. Who has a deep sense of mission, check. In fact, quietly and without much media attention, Filipino engineers, contractors, and specialists are already working across Musk's ecosystem. From digital design to outsourced tech support, from software QA to supply chain coordination, Filipino professionals are making sure the gears of innovation don't grind to a halt. And here's where it gets interesting. Musk is increasingly working with remote, decentralized talent pools. As AI, robotics, and space tech expand, so does his need for people who are hungry, humble, and willing to grind. The West often looks to Ivy League graduates. Musk? He wants people who get things done, degree or not. So what happens when a billionaire obsessed with output realizes there's a country full of people who already embody his ideals? He might not say it out loud, but make no mistake, Elon Musk doesn't ignore efficiency. And Filipinos are the Filipino takeover of remote work and global freelancing. The global pandemic changed the way the world works, but it also uncovered something else. Filipinos were already ahead of the curve. While the West scrambled to adjust to remote setups and digital workspaces, Filipinos had already been building a multi-billion-dollar outsourcing empire for years. The Philippine BPO, business process outsourcing, industry is now worth over $30 billion, and it's still growing. What began as call centers has now expanded into high-skill, high-impact work. Web and app development, graphic and motion design, social media marketing, podcast production, virtual executive assistant, cybersecurity and IT support, accounting and data analytics. Log on to platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, OnlineJobs.ph, or TopTal, and you'll find tens of thousands of Filipino freelancers working for CEOs in San Francisco, YouTubers in London, and startups in Berlin. They're smart, responsive, creative, and most of all, reliable. And here's the real kicker. Filipino freelancers often outperform their Western counterparts at a fraction of the cost. That's not exploitation, it's market reality. With a lower cost of living and a strong dollar-to-peso conversion rate, Filipino professionals can deliver top-tier results while making enough to support extended families and even local businesses. One marketing agency in New York recently revealed that 80% of their staff is based in the Philippines. Why? Because the Filipino team consistently met deadlines, showed up early for meetings, and brought positive energy to client interactions. Virtual assistants from the Philippines are now running the back end of entire companies, managing calendars, coordinating international logistics, and even negotiating contracts. The West corporations are becoming dependent on Filipino talent, and they don't even realize it. What happens if Filipinos one day demand equity instead of hourly rates? What happens if they build their own agencies, platforms, or tools and cut out the Western middleman? It's not a question of if, but when. Education, tech, and the Filipino brain drain. Filipinos aren't just workers, they're thinkers, coders, and creators. And every year, the Philippines produces thousands of STEM graduates from top universities like the University of the Philippines, Ateneo, De La Salle, and Mapua University. These graduates are highly skilled in engineering, software development, data science, and cybersecurity. The only problem? They often don't stay. Due to limited opportunities and low local salaries, many of the Philippines' brightest minds migrate to the US, Canada, Australia, or Europe, where their talents are immediately absorbed by global tech companies. They work for Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Oracle, and yes, some even find their way into Tesla's supply chain. This phenomenon is known as brain drain. And for the Philippines, it's both a curse and a compliment. While the West benefits from world-class talent, building smart cities, automating factories, developing cutting-edge apps, the Philippines loses engineers who could be solving local infrastructure problems or scaling domestic startups. One Filipino AI developer working in California said it best: "I build America's tech dreams, but I can't afford to raise my kids there. So I send money back home and pray that someday we'll build something that belongs to us." This irony cuts deep. Western innovation is being built on the backs of Filipino brilliance, often underpaid and unacknowledged. Yet the Philippines struggles to retain its own prodigies. Elon Musk once said, "Talent is everywhere. Opportunity is not." Well, Filipino talent is everywhere, from labs in Boston to dev teams in Berlin. But if the West continues to extract without reinvesting, the long-term imbalance could have consequences. Because when the Philippines finally decides to keep its geniuses at home, it won't just be exporting talent. It'll be exporting competition, military, medicine, and the silent infiltration. While many Filipinos are building the digital future, others are holding up the physical systems that keep the West alive, often without acknowledgement. Did you know that tens of thousands of Filipinos serve in the U.S. military? Many are on the front lines, risking their lives for a country they weren't even born in. They serve with distinction, with some even earning U.S. citizenship through military service. In the United States, Canada, and the UK, hospitals would collapse without Filipino nurses. It's not an exaggeration. According to the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, over 240,000 Filipino nurses have been deployed abroad over the past decade. In California alone, 20% of nurses are of Filipino descent. They work long shifts, take emotionally intense roles, and go the extra mile, often becoming like family to their patients. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Filipino healthcare workers were hit disproportionately hard because they were on the front lines more often than most. In the UK, elderly care homes increasingly rely on Filipino caregivers, praised not just for their skills, but their compassion. It's the kind of empathy you can't train into someone. It's embedded in Filipino culture. Americans don't often realize this, but their everyday safety and survival on the battlefield, in hospitals, in senior homes, is often in the hands of a Filipino. And if Elon Musk is as perceptive as we think, he's probably watching these trends. The convergence of discipline, care, loyalty, and technical competence, that's not just a good worker. That's a foundation for future society. The silent infiltration is already underway. The question is, when will the West finally acknowledge the quiet power it's leaning on? Cultural power. Beyond hard labor and technical skills, Filipinos are also taking over where you'd least expect it: culture and media. You've probably seen their names. Bretman Rock, a beauty icon and influencer with millions of followers. Bella Porch, a TikTok sensation turned singer with global hits. Niana Guerrero, one of the most followed young dancers on YouTube and Instagram. But they're just the visible tip of the iceberg. Behind the scenes, an army of Filipino video editors, motion graphic designers, thumbnail artists, and animators are powering some of the world's most watched content. Hollywood productions outsource animation and post-production to Filipino teams. Popular YouTubers and podcasters rely on virtual creative teams from Manila and Davao. Even the editing of viral K-pop content often involves Filipino freelancers. There's a reason why brands test their music videos, ads, and content campaigns in the Philippines first. Filipinos are early adopters, trend-aware, and deeply connected to both Eastern and Western sensibilities. It makes them the perfect cultural bridge. In fact, Western influencers are increasingly outsourcing entire branding departments to the Philippines. These aren't just VAs, they're creative directors, marketing analysts, and audience engagement experts. So while the West watches Korean dramas and marvels at Japanese tech, it's missing something subtler. Filipinos are already influencing what you watch, click, and share every single day. In the era of the attention economy, cultural power equals global power, and the Philippines is silently stepping into that space. The West's blind spot and Elon Musk's silent strategy? Let's be honest, when the West talks about global talent, the conversation usually revolves around China, India, or Eastern Europe. Southeast Asia, often an afterthought, but that's starting to change. Slowly, Elon Musk, in a lesser-known Twitter thread, once remarked that talent is hidden in places we ignore. While the tweet didn't name specific countries, many believe he was referencing regions like Southeast Asia. And guess what? He's right. Tesla and SpaceX rely on global supply chains. And increasingly, Filipino contractors, engineers, and QA teams are becoming part of those chains. They may not be on the front cover of Forbes, but they're in the spreadsheets, code bases, and production lines. What happens if Musk starts hiring more actively in Manila, Cebu, or Iloilo? What if he sets up a specialized offshore engineering unit staffed by Filipinos? It wouldn't just be smart, it would be strategic. Filipinos bring a rare mix of technical ability, linguistic clarity, cultural intuition, and intense work ethic. That's a gold mine for someone building multi-planetary infrastructure or training next-gen AI models. Here's a bold prediction. Within the next 10 years, a Filipino team will help launch a Mars-bound mission, optimize a neural network for Tesla, or build a breakthrough in brain-computer interface technology. Not because of charity, not because of diversity quotas. Why ignoring the Filipino rise could backfire? The West has long benefited from Filipino labor. But what if that dynamic starts to shift? If the US, Canada, and Europe fail to recognize, invest in, and protect Filipino talent, other countries will happily step in. China, for example, has already started offering scholarships, visas, and business incentives to Southeast Asian workers. They see the potential, and they're acting on it. There's also a growing sense among the Filipino diaspora that their contributions aren't being respected. They send remittances, build lives abroad, keep businesses afloat, and yet often face racism, wage disparities, and immigration hurdles. If this continues, the unspoken loyalty many Filipinos feel toward the West could fade. And with it, a massive portion of the workforce that currently keeps Western economies running. Imagine a world where the Philippines partners more deeply with ASEAN neighbors or BRICS nations, where Filipino developers build apps for the Chinese market, or where Filipino nurses work exclusively in state-of-the-art Middle Eastern hospitals. The West needs to wake up. This isn't just about talent anymore. It's about diplomatic influence, economic leverage, and national security. Ignoring the rise of the Filipino workforce doesn't just risk inefficiency. It risks losing a loyal ally in the race for global leadership. Elon Musk's warning and final message. Elon Musk may not have stood on a podium and shouted, "The West is ignoring Filipinos." But in many ways, his career, hiring principles, and work culture offer a silent warning. A warning that if we continue to chase hype while ignoring heart, if we overvalue credentials while undervaluing commitment, we will fall behind. Because the future isn't just being built in Cupertino, Palo Alto, or Berlin. It's being coded in Cavite, designed in Davao, edited in Iloilo, and tested by a nurse working a double shift in Toronto. The West must recognize this shift. or risk losing a generation of builders, carers, and creators who have already proven their worth 1,000 times over. The Philippines is no longer just a labor-exporting nation. It's a growing intellectual and creative powerhouse, quietly changing the world behind the scenes. And if Elon Musk were watching, and we think he is, he'd probably say, if you're building rockets, AI, or the next big thing, you'd better start looking in the right places. And the Philippines is one